Welcome to this video. It doesn't matter which platform you're running, I will be using VirtualBox. So this means that whether you're on a Mac, Windows or Linux, this should work. So I've already said I'm going to use VirtualBox machines for this. So make sure that you install VirtualBox to follow along with me. And then I'm going to use Ubuntu 22. So if you go to Ubuntu downloads page, you need to download Ubuntu and you want to use the Ubuntu server. So if you click there, get Ubuntu server, you're going to see that the latest version as of the recording of this video is 24.04, but I'm not sure whether everything I want to run runs on that yet. So that's why I'm going to go with 22.04. So to get Ubuntu 22.04, just click there on alternative downloads. You can either download it directly or you can use a torrent. So here under torrent, just click on Ubuntu server 22.04 to download it. All right. So download Ubuntu, get it ready because you're going to use it in VirtualBox. So since you're going to use VirtualBox, you're going to need to disable. So before we get into that, when we get to the part about installing Kubernetes, I'm going to use this post. I've already compiled all this in this post. And if you need to confirm anything, you can always go to the documentation. I've linked the various documentation links right there. So since you're going to be using VirtualBox, you need to disable Hyper-V if you're on Windows. So if you come here under extra commands, I have this. You can just copy this and run it on PowerShell as admin, run as admin. Then run that command and that will disable Hyper-V. So let's get started. And the first thing after installing VirtualBox, we need to create a machine. So my cluster is going to have two machines, just the control panel and the worker node. You can of course add as many nodes as you need to, but I'm only going to use two. I'm only going to use two nodes. First things first, let me come here under file. Is it under file? And then tools. And I'll go to the network manager. I need two networks. I'm just going to create one network. The other one is going to automatically come from VirtualBox. So here under host only network, I want to create a network, and this host only network will be accessible between the host, and also the nodes will be able to access each other. So if you want to create a new host, if you want to create a new network here, just click there. Make sure you click on host only network, and then I'm going to click on create. And for this, I want to make it, I want to disable DHCP because we want the IP addresses, the private IP addresses to be static. So I'm going to click there on properties and then DHCP server. DHCP server is already disabled, but I want to change the network. So you can change the network into something else, or you can just use that. But for me, I want to change it into something else. So the only thing I'm going to change is that. I'm going to make that 3. So my network is going to be, if I'm giving my IP addresses to my nodes, it's going to be 198.168.3. maybe 10.11 and so on. So that's why I'm just changing that. That's the only thing I'm going to change there. DHCP server disabled, good. And then I'm just going to apply. So once I do that, you can see my network is going to be that. And when installing Ubuntu, we are going to choose this network to use it. And then the first step, let's go and create our first machine. Once we create our first machine, we're going to add another network to it. And that is a network that will allow us to access the internet from within the node. So I'm going to click there on create to create our first machine. Oh, no, I should go back. I should get out of this. So just click on it and remove it. So let me just click there on machines, and I want to add a new machine. So don't click on add, click on new. We're going to create a new machine. I'm just going to call this control node. I need to select my ISO. So the Ubuntu that you downloaded, select that. So I'm just going to go next. I can click there, guest additions, and then I will go next. For Kubernetes, you need at least 2 GB of RAM, and I'm just going to stick with 2 GB. So 2048 MB, that's 2 GB. I'm going to stick with that. And then for processors, you need at least 2 virtual CPUs. If you go with the one, you're going to get an error later. So make sure you select 2 virtual CPUs. And then I'm just going to go next. As for disk, I'm just going to go with the default, which is 25 GB. That's okay, that's enough. And then next, I can click on finish, but I don't want to do anything yet because I want to add a second network. And the only way for me to add the second network is for me to shut down the server. So I'm going to right click, and then I will stop the server and I'm going to power it off. Power off. I'll just click on it, and then if I scroll down, there's this thing about networking. So I'm going to click there on network, and adapter 1 is enabled as NAT. That's okay. We want this, and this is going to give us an automatic IP address to allow the node to access the internet. And then I can click on adapter 2. I need to enable adapter 2 network, and for this I'm going to choose my host only network. So I'm going to choose my host only network. So select that, and then I'll select the second one that I created right there. And then after that, I'm just going to click on OK. So now you can see I have 2 networks that I can attach to my machine. If you don't do this, you're going to get problems accessing the internet, even though you're going to have a private IP. So make sure you just add 2 networks to make your work easier. So after doing that, I can click on it. It's booting the Ubuntu ISO that I selected earlier. So I want this to be draggable. I mean, for the width of this to be draggable. So I'm just going to come here under, is it view? Under view and scaled mode. So scaled mode, switch to scaled mode. With this, I can increase the size of that like that. All right, so let's get on with the installation. So we are now in the installation stage for Ubuntu. Language English, definitely. And then I'll just continue without updating the installer. And keyboard, of course, select the keyboard based on where you are. I'm going to select the English US keyboard. Done. And then, of course, I want to select Ubuntu server. Just go with the Ubuntu server. And then I'm going to press enter. This is a part that's important. And you can see, at least in the first part, NPOS 3, that's our network that will give us internet, and I can tell that will give us internet because it has already given us an IP address, and that IP will be able to access the internet. Now the one that we need to deal with is the second one, and the second one is going to give us an IP address, a private IP address that we can use to access our nodes, and will allow the nodes to talk to each other. So if I just click inside there, and I can use the keyboard. So the first one, we don't need to do anything, just leave it as it is. It's going to give you an automatic IP. So the second one, come to the second part, and I'll press enter, and I want to give it an IPv4 address. So edit IPv4. And here, of course, we want a manual IP. So tab, I will give it a subnet. Remember the network that we created. It was 192.168.3. 192.168. If you don't remember it, you can still look at VirtualBox down here. You can look at it right there under tools, file tools, network manager. You can look at the IP address right there, 192.168.3. And then this is a subnet. So we're going to start from 0, and we're just going to make it a subnet of 24 as it is in our network. The second part, just press enter to go to the second part. In the second part, I want to give it a static IP address. So I'm going to do 192.168.3, and I can give it an IP of 20. Let me just start from 20, right? It doesn't matter, but I'm going to start from 20. You can start from 10. I'm going to start from 20 and give this an IP of 20. And the next node, I'm also going to give it an IP of 21. So the next node will be 192.168.3.21. So the rest I can leave as there. So I'm just going to press enter, press enter, press enter, and then I will save, press enter. And if it doesn't tell you down here that you're not able to access, if it tells you that you're not able to access the internet, just make sure that you have internet connectivity, because that's more important. So let's go to the next step. Done. Proxy address, I'm just going to skip this, press enter. And now it's checking if I can access the internet. If I'm not able to access the internet, it will tell me. And you can see the fact that it was able to fetch this, it means that I can access the internet. So I'm just going to go done. And for this, I'm really not going to do anything. This is VirtualBox. I don't want to partition the disk anyway. I'm just going to leave it at the default, use the entire disk. And then I'm going to press tab, tab, tab till I get down to done. Once I get to done, of course, I'll just press enter and I will leave everything as they are. So this is just a summary of what to expect. And then I'm just going to press enter to continue with the installation. I'm going to press continue. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, continue. Give your computer a name. I'll call this one control node. Control node. Enter. Your server's name, control node, and then pick a username. Username, I'm just going to use Ubuntu. This is my local computer. I don't really care much. And then I will give it the password. And then enter and done. Enable Ubuntu Pro. No need for that. I'm just going to press continue. Install SSH server. Yes, install SSH server. I'll press enter to select it, and then I'm just going to scroll down till I get to done, and then I'm going to press enter. And for all these others, I'm also just going to press all the way down till I get to done, and then done. And I will let it continue the installation. And then after this, we can see what to do with our server. We are going to test if we can log into the server. While this is happening, let's work on something else. So the reason why I installed SSH server is because I don't really want to use a VirtualBox interface for this, and that is this. You can see I can't even see my keyboard, and I don't want to go through the issue. I don't want to go through the steps of debugging this, getting copy and paste to work. So the easiest thing for me will be to just SSH into my VirtualBox machine, and for that you can use whichever terminal you want to use. So you can see that's an advantage. So if you can SSH into your server, that's much better instead of using this, because with SSH, I can just copy and paste. And I'm on Windows, I'm going to use Git Bash. So if you don't have Git Bash installed, Git Bash automatically comes with Git. So just go to Google and search for Git. Search for Git. And then download Git for Windows. If you are on a Mac, then just use the normal terminal. I believe it's just using bash, just like Git Bash. And if you're on Linux, of course, just use the normal terminal on your computer. That's the one you need. Once you install Git, we're just going to SSH into the server once it's installed. You can see the installation is still continuing. But once the installation is complete, all we'll have to do is just do something like SSH, and the user was Ubuntu at the IP address was 192.168.3.20, and then that is going to allow us to SSH into the server. And I can see the server is already accessible, even though the installation is not complete, but we are going to do this later on. So I'm just going to do yes. And for some reason, the server is accessible, even though the installation is still continuing here. But anyway, let's just see what happens if I can still log into the server. All right, so let's just wait for the installation to complete, and then we're going to log into this server. And this is how I will be using it, all right, just by SSHing into the server. And as I've said, the reason for that, if I do Control-C, is because I can copy and paste easily, right? You can see if I want to copy anything, I can just do Control Insert and then Shift Insert, and that's going to paste in Git bash. Right, so let's wait for the installation to complete and then we can continue on. While the first server is still installing, you can go ahead and install the second one. We are going to use the same network. You don't need to create this network again. So let's just come here under machine and we need a new node. So I'm going to call this node 01. The ISO image is going to be the same, Ubuntu 2204. We can go next. I can add the guest additions. Next. This one as well, I'm going to give it 2 GB of RAM and 2 virtual CPUs. And then go next. I'll also leave this with 25. Actually, as a worker node, maybe you may need a little bit more space because this is where your items will run. So this is where your servers will run, your containers will run. So you might increase the space for that. So next. And I can click on finish, but just with the other one, I'm just going to come down here under stop, let it start. And the moment I can stop it, I'm just going to power it off. The reason for that is to add the second network. So I'll come here under network for node 1, click on network. And the first one, I'm just going to leave it at NAT, and that is going to give us an automatic IP address that will allow us to access the internet. And then for adapter 2, I will enable adapter 2 and I'm going to attach the host only network. And then I'm going to select this second network that I created. And then I'm going to click on OK. Node 1, we can start it. This one as well, I can increase the size, but I can see it is not in scale mode, so I'm just going to click there on scale mode. All right, so as we did before, just click there on English, continue without updating. I will select that keyboard, done, Ubuntu server, that's the version I want. And then as for the network, you can see the first network has automatically assigned us an IP, and that will give us internet access. The second one, of course, we need to go and edit it. So press enter and then come to edit IPv4. And of course, we want to use manual. We want to manually assign an IP. So for this one, the subnet is the same as the first one, which was 192.168.3.0/24. So they're in the same subnet. And then as for the address, I'm going to do 192.168. The other one was 20. So I can give this an IP address of 21, but don't forget .3 is there. .3, 192.168.3.21. And then I can leave it as it is. Don't add a gateway. Just leave the others as they are. Save. And then let's go to the next step. Done. Done. Let it check whether we can access internet connectivity. All right. So since we can access internet connectivity, I'm just going to click there on done, and the installation can continue. I'll click there on done as well. Just scroll down to done. Done. Continue. Give it a name and so on and so forth. Name, I've given it that name. Server's name, I've given it that, and that's going to be used as the local, that's going to get used as a host name for my server. I'll just use Ubuntu as my username and then a password. Done. Enable Ubuntu Pro. Continue, skip that. Install SSH server. I'm going to press enter and then I will calm down and then press done, and the installation can continue. Press done, and let's wait for the installation for node 1 to complete. Let's see if the control node installation is complete. So the installation for this is completed, so we can reboot now. You can see now the installation is complete and it's telling us to log in. These are just some, I think these are like last step things that should be done after reboot, and Cloud Init is doing some of them. So the updates are continuing here. I'm just going to do tab. So if I click there, I can click on tab, click on OK. So this is our control node that we logged into. Control L. Now I don't know where the recording stopped because I just noticed that the recording had stopped. I don't know where it stopped, but just to show you the last commands I did that to update the server, sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade to update the server. And if I log out of the server, there's another command that I ran. So to log out, I can just do exit, enter. And there's one that I ran here. And this was to remove, if you scroll all the way up, I don't know whether I'll find it. Yes. So I faced this issue after trying to log into my server. This just requires you to remove the IP address from your known hosts file. And the quickest way to do that is just to run ssh keygen -remove 192.that, the IP address, and that's going to remove it from your known hosts file. And once you do that, you can try and log into your server, ssh user at the IP, enter your password, and you'll see you're logged in. And then that is when I ran this to update the server. Okay, so now that I've logged out of the server, I can come back here and under control node, that's the one I'm working with. That's the one that's complete. I'm just going to power it off. So the last thing that of course I need to test is whether the nodes can talk to each other, and that is easy to do. I can do that using ping. So let's just wait for this to complete the installation, and then I'm going to SSH into it, and then we're going to see if you can ping, if both servers can ping each other. So here under control node, let's see how to open it. So if you want to open it, and since I will be using Git bash, I'm not going to use the interface provided by Oracle to access the server. To do away with that, I can just open it in headless mode. When I right click, I can go here under start, and I'll open it in headless start. All right, so I can see even the node 1 is complete, so we can reboot. So you can see we don't have an interface for control node, so we can just SSH into it like you normally do with your cloud servers. But you still have the preview here, and this preview is important because it can tell you if any error has occurred on your server as it's starting up. So you can see it's still starting up. The moment you see the login option there, you can go and log in via SSH. So you can see the login is ready for you there. You can see it, maybe you can't see it because it's small, but on your computer, you'll definitely be able to notice that there is some change there. I'm going to come here and log back into the control node. So SSH Ubuntu, password for that. I'll just do Control L to clear the screen. So you can see our server. Let's try to update again. All the updates are done. Okay, this has no updates. I've just updated it. Let's look back on node 1. Where are we with node 1? Still restarting. We can also SSH into this. To SSH into this, you can just open a new instance of Git bash. So Git bash, open a new window. And since we are humans, we are visual people, it's sometimes difficult to differentiate which one we are working with. So you can change the background of one. If I right click and I go into options, I can come here under background, and maybe I can make this a little bit of gray. Click OK. Save. And you can see this one is now a bit gray, slightly differentiating it from this one. Anyway, let's just try to SSH into this node 1. So here we are SSH'd into the control node. I don't really want to type, so I'm just going to copy this. Copy, and then I'm going to come back, paste. The node 1 IP was 21. Let me just give it time to see what it's going to do. If it doesn't, I'm going to shut it down and restart it again. After closing the machine and restarting it, I can see now node 1 is ready. So I can come back here and log into it. So I'm just going to run that again. Enter. For some reason, it's still not accessible. So let's come back here, and I'm just going to stop it. Power off. Let me just start it. Now I'll start it normal first because I'm not sure why SSH is not accessible. I did install the SSH server. Did I choose SSH server to be installed for node 1? All right, you can see it is ready for me to log in, but this side, I'm not. All right, okay, I can access it. So I thought that SSH was not installed, but apparently I just needed to restart it. I can do yes, accept that into my hosts file, and then log in. Control L to clear the screen. I'm just going to do sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y, and this is going to update the server. All right, I'll let this continue for a while. I'm just going to press enter for the updates, and then I'll press tab and then press on OK. All right, now our updates are done. Let's open these together. I'm also going to bring out the other one. So Control L to clear the screen. Down here as well, Control L to clear the screen. So the IP address for the node is, so let's ping, let's see if the two nodes can talk to each other. So we're just going to ping the control node, and the IP for the control node was 192.192. Instead of doing all this, I can just come up here and do IP A, and I know the IP, that network was that. If you remember during the installation, it was that, and our inet, the IP is that. Copy. So I can just ping and then shift insert to paste, and you can see it can talk to the other node. Control L, Control C, close that, and then I'll do Control L to clear the screen. Then I'll come back to the control node, and let's see if it can talk to the worker node. So I'm just going to do Control L as well to clear the screen, and then I'm going to do ping, shift insert, and the worker node was 21. Right, so you can see the nodes can talk to each other, and the hosts can also talk to the nodes. The nodes have access to the internet, so we can install Kubernetes, and that pretty much covers how you can set up virtual machines on your local computer to install Kubernetes. And this is very helpful because another solution would be for you to set up cloud servers that will cost you from anywhere $5, so for 2, maybe $10 a month. So the free option is always the best. With VirtualBox, you can set up 2 virtual machines that you can use for your Kubernetes demos. Maybe you're preparing for CKA, CKS, CCAD, all that. Now you don't have to worry about virtual machines for your Kubernetes. So I don't want the video to be too long. In the next video, let's see how to install Kubernetes. I'm going to come here and follow all these steps to install Kubernetes on both machines, and then we're going to connect them. All right, so everything we need to do to make sure that the virtual machines are ready for Kubernetes, we are going to do in the next video. See you in that video.